Hello and welcome to Lily's Library. So it is somehow already February. January somehow felt like the longest month, but also the shortest month at the same time. So it means it is time to do our January reading wrap up. So I got through a decent amount of books, so let's talk about them. So in January, I read a total of 8 books. 5 of them were physical. We've got 1 digital and then 2 audio. So I'm going to be starting with the audiobooks because they're the first ones that I completed this year. So starting with A Power Unbound by Freya Marske. This is the 3rd and final book in the Last Binding trilogy. These are like historical magical romances. I thought this was very fun. It was definitely a step up and an improvement from A Restless Truth, but I just enjoyed it. I don't really have any majorly strong feelings either way about this. I did really love exploring some of these characters that we haven't seen as much of in the other books, and I'm very happy with how it wrapped up, but it's honestly a series I don't think I would reread or necessarily could strongly recommend unless you are absolutely in love with book 1. In book 1, one of our characters is thrown into the world of magicians in London. He's never known that magic existed, and he is thrown into it because of this new job he got, and he gets caught up in it, and it's about the relationship that progresses there and all sorts of cool stuff, and it is just very fun. Then I listened to the audiobook of Girl Falling. This is by Hayley Scrivener. This is an Australian sapphic crime mystery, I guess. This is really interesting. I honestly didn't expect to love this as much as I did. I'm not a crime or thriller reader or mystery reader, but this was honestly just so much fun and so compelling. Like I said, it is Australian. It is set in the Blue Mountains. Our main character, she is working and living in the Blue Mountains. She's kind of grown up there her whole life, and she does a lot of climbing and rock climbing stuff. And one day she's out on a climb with her partner and her best friend, and something happens and her partner falls and dies. So it's looking into what happened there, like if someone killed her partner or if it was just an accident. So it goes through like their relationship, her relationship with her girlfriend and her relationship with her best friend, and then their relationships as well. We also go into the main character's past a lot because her younger sister also died in the mountains. And this is just such an insane read. The last, I thought I knew where it was going, but the last chapter or 2 really threw it all on its head and tipped it over, and I had no idea what was going on, but I absolutely loved it. It was shocking in the best ways possible and just such a fun read, and I will definitely be reading Hayley's other book. Then I read my first 5-star read of the year, and that was Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I absolutely adored this. I've done a reading vlog where I do talk a lot about it, but this is book 1 in the Farseer trilogy, which we are reading for my Farseer Readers book club. We are actually just about to start Royal Assassin. I need to check in and see where everyone's up to and if they're ready to start. But this was just so good. This is very depressing at the same time, but it's just such a masterful book. Hobb's writing is just so effortless and simple and easy to follow, but she does such an incredible job at setting up this world and these characters and just showing everyone's true colors. This is a very heavy character-driven story, and I absolutely adored it. It is so good. It is quite slow paced, but I just loved it so much, and I cannot wait to see where the next book goes. As I said, this is my first 5-star read of the year. But a bit more about what this is actually about. This follows Fitz, who is the bastard son of a prince, and he is basically given up by his birth mother and her family and sent to live in the keep. And it goes through his whole childhood and him growing into a very young boy. He's still a teenager or something by the end of this book, and looking at him being trained up to be the royal assassin, looking at training him up in different powers as well, and whether he can actually get those powers and understand them and use them wisely before he gets turned on his king. And it is just insane. There is so much to happen in this book, and it is so good. I will warn you though, if you read this, don't get too attached to some of the characters and some of the things that happen in this, because it will break your heart multiple times. It did to me, and it was just insane, and I cannot wait for the next book. Robin Hobb is just such a beautiful writer, and I can already tell I'm going to love everything I read by her. Then I read E-Arc of Crocodile Tears by Ali K. Mulford. This is out now. This is the 4th book in the Prickle Island Zoo series. This follows Dove and Deacon, and it is just so much fun. Dove and Deacon, they started out as childhood best friends. They grew up together. They went through so much. And then when they're 12 or 13, I think, Deacon leaves their D&D campaign and goes and chases his dreams of becoming a musician and being an actor and stuff. So it's now years later, and Deacon is filming a new rom-com on the zoo to try and help the zoo stay afloat after some things that happened in the other books. And Dove is just trying to deal with seeing him again and being near him, and she doesn't want to be there with him, and it's like all of that stuff and their relationship rekindling and them reconnecting, and it's just so fun and tender and sweet and has some very tear-jerking moments, as do all of these books by Ali K. Mulford, and I just really enjoyed it. It's really fun, very nerdy. It's got that Hollywood dynamic as well with Deacon being a celebrity, and I just really enjoyed this. I then read The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wong. I really enjoyed this. This was a buddy read I did with one of my friends, Mika, and it was just so good. It fell just short of 5 stars for me, but I'll get into that in a bit. But if you've not heard of The Sword of Kaigan, this is a war story. We follow 2 different characters. We've got Misaki, who is a very powerful warrior herself in her own way, and is just a very strong and powerful woman, and she is married into this very strong samurai family, the Matsudas, and she is stuck there and dealing with that. So that's one of the things we follow. And then we also look at her oldest son. He's one of our other POV characters, Mamoru, and how he grows and how he's questioning all this stuff that he's always thought to be truth. It's a lot about propaganda and unreliable governments and misinformation, and it is just insane. It tackles so many topics, and I really truly loved this. This has got some of the best fight scenes I have ever read. They are so cinematic and easy to follow and just so well crafted. It's also got a lot of different kind of like water bending things, so it's similar to Avatar in that way. And we do have some people that can do stuff with blood, and Mizaki is one of those because of her family line. And it is so interesting. Now, the things I loved were the fight scenes, the writing, the characters. I was bawling my eyes out for like a good 100 pages. I wish I had filmed it so I could show you guys, but I have a photo at least of how I was feeling. And it was a lot. The thing that brought it down for me was really the ending. The last like probably, I don't know, almost 100 pages. The last like this much, like the last 50 pages, few chapters, just really brought it down because it was setting up for a second book that is never coming, or at least at this stage never coming. So we were bringing up things that I feel like got kind of like tucked under the rug and just thrown away, or very loosely wrapped up, which I didn't really enjoy, because with the standalone I am expecting a bit more of things to be wrapped up and actually succinctly tied together. Now, a majority of it was, but there was just a few issues that I had with that ending, and I really didn't like the way that Misaki's relationship with her husband progressed and changed. There was definitely a lot more. I had a bigger appreciation for him as a character and seeing his side of things, but I also didn't like the way it kind of glossed over a lot of the abuse that was there. This is a very heavy book, like I said. We've got a lot of topics about just the treatment of women, the mistreatment of women, specifically the atrocities of war. There is multiple essay scenes. There is mention of miscarriages and pregnancies. It is just very heavy. There's there's suicide scenes as well, which it's just a very full-on book. It has a lot of different things that it covers, which I was expecting, being a war story, but I wasn't expecting the dynamic of her relationship with her husband, and I just wasn't really the biggest fan of how that carried out and how it progressed. But it was still a fucking incredible book. This is something I will think about for years to come, especially some of those scenes in the middle and some of these fight scenes. It is beautiful and insane, and I literally was sobbing, and I've never had my chest hurt that much from crying while reading a book. It was wonderful, but just short of 5 stars, which really upsets me. The ending just really brought it down, and I just can't rate it 5 stars for that reason. Next, I read Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This is a sapphic horror novella. It is beautiful. This writing is so lush and beautiful and sometimes too descriptive, but it's really good. So in this, we follow Rose. She is our main character. She has left her old job, left her old relationship after her partner was cheating on her, and she's been living in this other area for a few months now, and she's basically trying to grow and do more things and discover her love and joy in life again and explore different sides of herself. And in that process, she goes to a farmer's market one day and she accidentally trips over some things. There's a dog running around, a whole bunch of chaos, and she stumbles into this stall that sells cupcakes and soaps and plants and all sorts of stuff. And she's immediately enamored by the woman that runs that stall. She tries a cupcake and loves it, and then she keeps going back week after week to buy more cupcakes. And slowly her relation progresses with this woman that runs the stall, and it's a very deep infatuation that Ro has for her. So we look at the change in their relationships, the secrets that are being hidden between the two of them, and the ugly truth that's at the center of it, and who's actually the one that's obsessing and consuming the other. And it is horrifying in the best way possible. This is cannibalism as well in it, so that's like the biggest content warning for this. It is brutal and fucked up, and I thought it would go a different way to it, the way it did. Like, I had an inkling of what I thought was happening, and I was completely wrong. So I just really enjoyed this. It is horrifying, but so beautiful. If you can stomach the book, I do highly recommend it, just because the character work and the writing is so stunning and just, so good. Then I read a somewhat disappointing book. Like, it's not the worst, but it's not the best either. I think it had quite a few things that could have been polished a bit better and redone a bit better had it had a bit of a longer editing time or a shorter page count. But that is Hemorrhaging Luck. This is by Makana Yamamoto. This was a book club read. This is a sci-fi heist book. We're following Edie, who has just gotten out of prison after like 8 years, I think it is, after something that went horribly wrong, and they were turned in by their so-called best friend. So they have just got out. Their best friend, Angel, who is the one that got them into prison in the first place, is there to pick them up as they are released as well. And they are taken back to their family house to see their sister and their sister's children. And Angel propositions them and is like, hey, let's do one last job, because of course. And we kind of spiral from there. Edie, of course, doesn't really have any other options after they've been blacklisted from applying for other jobs, so they kind of have no other choice but to agree to do this job with Angel. So a lot of this book is getting the gang together. I think it was probably drawn on for a little bit too long, just because the heist was like over and done really fast and was like the very last thing in the book. But it is fun, but heist novels are notoriously difficult to nail, and this one just really missed the mark. It's got really interesting characters, and there's such a big group of them that we could have explored a lot more of them. I think with the length of this book, it could have benefited from being multi-POV. I think that could have added to it and fixed up the pacing a lot more, so we're not stuck in one character's point of view. Or it just could have been shorter and single POV, and we could cut down some of the setup for it, because there is a lot of setup for this heist, and it was kind of underwhelming when we got there, just because there was such a big build up and then it just kind of plateaued a bit. Like, I'm just a bit disappointed by this. I would be super interested in checking out more of the author's books. This is their debut, and it is a very solid debut. I just think it needed a bit more work done on it, so I'd love to see what their next book is like. This is such an interesting queer normative world. It's a very interesting setting as well that I wish we got to explore more. It's very reminiscent of Piltover in Arcane, so you've got the upper city where the wealthy and the rich live, and then the undercity, which is further and darker and deeper, and that's where a lot more of the poorer and working class live. And it's such an interesting dynamic and setting, but we didn't really get to explore it, so that's something else I was just left wanting more from. And the final book I read, I actually just finished last night, and that was Watermoon. This is by Samantha Soto Yambao. I really loved this. This is so whimsical and cozy and sad and infuriating and beautiful at the same time. It is very, very Studio Ghibli-esque. It follows a very similar like pattern to the way a lot of those movies play out, especially like Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, and The Boy and the Heron. They are very similar in the kind of like roundabout way that we navigate the story. But this is so beautiful and not at all what I was expecting, and I really truly enjoyed it. So in this we follow Hana. Her dad runs a pawn shop, and it's not just a regular pawn shop, it's actually hidden behind a ramen restaurant, and only certain people will ever open the ramen restaurant and find the pawn shop. It's if they have a choice or a regret that they are willing to give up, and they will trade it and pawn it off for something else here. It's her father's job and her job to collect these regrets and choices and make sure that they are taken care of before they can be given away and done with what needs to be done in this world. And on the day that Hana is meant to take over the pawn shop from her father as he retires, she comes downstairs to find that the pawn shop has been ransacked, a choice has been taken, and her father is missing. So she's kind of just thrown into all this chaos and has to figure out what happened, where he's gone, who took the choice, and what's actually happening, and whether she's making the right decisions along the way. In this process as well, we have Kay, who is going to the ramen shop and is knocking on the door and trying to open it to see if he can get ramen early because he had a late flight or early flight. And instead, he's about to knock on the door and push it open as Hana opens the door to look out, and their worlds collide, and it's about their relationship changing and how she's trying to always make sure he's safe. And it's just, I really enjoyed the romance in this. I don't think it'd be everyone's cup of tea, but I personally really loved their dynamic and seeing the way that their relationship grew. And this is just so whimsical. If you're not okay with like very outrageous and whimsical books, then this won't be for you, but I personally just really loved it and enjoyed it. So they are the 8 books that I read in January, but I thought it'd also be good to go through all of the books I acquired in the month of January and a physical TBR check-in sort of situation. So at the start of January, I had 126 unread books on my physical TBR, and then I acquired quite a few of them. So as you will probably see in a reading vlog quite soon, I ended up picking up The Healing Season of Pottery. This is by Yeon So-min. This is a translated cozy fiction kind of thing. It's about a news writer who quits her job and ends up finding this pottery studio later and does like pottery classes and finds like her love and her passion in life again, and it just sounded really fun. I also picked up Blood Over Bridehaven by M.L. Wang. As I said, I read The Sword of Kaigen this month and I really loved it, so I wanted to get to Wang's other book, and I got this cool hardcover that's got like red sprayed edges. I think this is like dark academia, but I'm very excited but nervous for it. I'll hopefully be reading it in March. And then I also ended up buying a physical copy of The Sword of Kaigen, which you've already seen. I was reading this digitally originally, but I really wanted a physical copy so I could go through and like annotate it. I still need to go through and tab it, but I really am glad I picked up a physical copy of this. The same day I picked up The Healing Season of Pottery, I also got Watermoon. I was actually trying to find the hardcover because sometimes we get US copies of books here, but there was just no hardcover, so I just got the paperback. I do prefer paperback anyway, just the hardcover cover itself, like the dust jacket, you could fold it and turn it into like one of these little origami boats, which I thought was cool, but it's fine, I prefer paperback. And then I also bought Hammerjing Lark for the book club because I didn't have a copy and I couldn't find it from my library anyways, or anywhere. I think I should have just listened to this on audio because it is on Spotify, which is what I ended up doing to help me finish it, but yeah. I also picked up Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. This is book 2 in the Farseer trilogy. This will be a continuous purchase throughout this year. I will be slowly buying all of these books when I can and when I see them so I can make my way through them. And the final book I acquired this month is actually an arc of one of my most anticipated reads, and that is Fable for the End of the World by Everread. It is so pretty. Like, look at this hollow green and the spine and the back, just Penguin very kindly sent me this, so I'm very excited to read it. I will be getting it to it soon, but this is Ava Reed's sapphic YA dystopian. I think this is YA, or they're sapphic dystopian nonetheless, and I'm very excited for this one. So I acquired 7 books and then read 5 off of my TBR, so I'm not doing well. So my current count, I believe, is 128. I am gonna do a recheck and count everything again just because I think I miscounted some things, but I'm sitting at roughly 128 books, so I've obviously gone up 2 in January. My goal in February is to read more books off my physical TBR. I've got a decent stack of them I would like to get through, as well as some library books, but I think February is going to be a difficult month for me just because it is my birthday month. It's actually very soon, so I'm probably going to end up getting books, but I would like to try and make a dent in my physical TBR, so that's going to be a bigger focus in February. But I think this isn't a bad spot. I did still read 8 books, with more than half of them being from my physical TBR, so that's definitely a good starting point, and I think I can continue that throughout the rest of this year. I'll keep doing these checkings at the end of my reading wrap up. I'm also not going to be doing any TBRs, at least not at the moment, just because I'm trying to work on a few things in my life and I don't want to be pressuring myself into reading, and I want to spend time with other hobbies. So if I don't lock myself into a TBR, then I'll kind of feel less pressured about it all. So that is my plan going forward. That being said, I do have a few books I'd like to get to in February. There's just like a stack of library books and some arcs because they come up soon. So we'll see how we go. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your favorite read from January is, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you later with another video. Bye.